Good morning. Welcome to the training webinar for today. For those of you on YouTube, it may not in fact be morning, so good day. We're going to talk about SQL commands this week. Process Director is a low-code, no-code application development platform. But it's very common to need to grab some external data from some database, whether it's in SQL or whether you import it via an Excel spreadsheet, whatever the case may be. You've got to be able to read and respond in Process Director to changes that occur in your external data. And the way that we generally do this is via business values. Now, when you're dealing with SQL requires a special kind of language to talk to databases and to return the data that you want. Now, I am fully aware that probably most of you who are here today are pretty good at SQL. However, for those who aren't, one of the things that we always say when it comes to business values is, and it's true, I guess, as far as it goes, but we always say, look, here's business values. And the nice thing about business values is that once you create them, the data is virtualized. It's universally available anywhere inside Process Director. And so your implementers don't need to know anything about SQL to actually use the data from the business value that pulls the data back. And we always say, just have your IT team tell you what the SQL is or build the business value for you, which for a larger organization, I suppose is fine. But for many organizations, the people who are doing the implementation are also the people who need to build the business values. And while Process Director is a low-code or no-code application in most cases, I think probably when you're dealing with external data, low-code is a better explanation or a better description of Process Director. So if you're going to build business values, you have to at least know the basics of SQL. So what we're going to do this week and next week, because it's going to take an irreducible amount of time to go through all of this and to set up all of the things that I have planned, we are actually going to build some business values. We're going to use SQL as we go. We're going to learn the SQL statements themselves and the various flavors of SQL and the various things that you need to know to be able to deal with this data. Now, at the outset, let me say we are not going to get too deep into learning, in our case, since I'm using SQL Server as the backend, the T-SQL flavor of the SQL language. We're just going to write the basic queries that you need to do the 99% of things that you'll want to do in Process Director. We are going to scratch the surface of SQL. We are not going to dive way down deep. So if you're expecting some description of how to create complex stored procedures and other things like that in SQL, well, that's not going to happen. We are going to cover the 4 basic types of SQL statements and the little wrinkles that may show up in each of those different types of SQL statements. And beyond that, we are not going to get into the complexities of SQL because it is quite deep and quite complex. We're just going to stay at kind of the beginner level for SQL to tell you what you need to know to be able to effectively create business values and occasionally write data back to the database. So if you're already a SQL pro, this may not be of much interest to you simply because it is going to be done at a very simple level. So with all of those caveats in mind, let's get started with what we're going to talk about for the next couple of weeks. So I have some data that we are going to use, and it looks like my screen for some reason is a little off there. There we go. That's better. Let's go back over here. So as I was about to say, we have some data that we are going to be using over the next couple of weeks. And this is that data. It is a list of airports. There are slightly under 900 rows. Well, I guess probably more precisely, a little over 850 rows. There's 857 rows of data. Normally, we wouldn't need this many rows to show you how the SQL statements work, but I've used a lot of rows because I also want to talk about data lists and how to use data lists appropriately with our external data as well, since the data list is a relatively new control, and we do want to talk about the data list and how it works. So this is the data we're going to be using for the next two webinars, for today and next week. And as I said, it's just a list of airports and some information about them. I have already imported this data into Process Director. We've talked several times about data in Process Director and using Excel data. That's what this is. It's just an Excel spreadsheet. I have got it set up to import into our internal user database. We've talked about data sources and Excel data sources before. So I've got this SQL webinar database, and to make this simpler, I should do something I forgot to do yesterday, and that is to do these airports. And I kind of forgot what the table will be called. The destination table prefix will be SQL, and the table name will be airports. So it should be called SQL airports. So what I want to do is just ensure that I only get one table back whenever we build our business values here. So, oh, no, it looks like I already did do it. It's already set to just do SQL airports. So that's the only table I'm looking at in this particular data source. I'm just doing that to make creating the business values a little bit easier. So it'll only show us as we begin to build business values, the data from that table. So let's start off with the simplest part of SQL, and that is getting data back out of a database. And the basic fundamental SQL statement is select star from table name. That's all you have to put in. The table name obviously will be replaced by the name of the table that you are trying to grab the data from, which in our case will be SQL airports. I guess I could probably type that in here, because I'll then be able to copy and paste this into my business value when I build it here in a little bit. So this is our basic SQL statement that just says select everything, and that's what the star means. The star is called a wildcard character, and there are several different wildcards, which we can talk about a little bit later. But this is the most important wildcard, because what this star does, or the asterisk sign, what it does is it returns everything, every column, every bit of data in the table you ask for. So the syntax for it is very simple. It's select star, which select everything. And by the way, this is why we call it a select statement, because what select means is grab the data and show it to me. So select just means choose the data from, and the from is important because the select star, okay, everything, but everything of what? Well, we have to tell it where we're going to get everything from, and in our case, it's going to be the SQL airports table. So we need the from keyword here. You can see it's written in blue, which tells us it's an important SQL word. And where's it going to come from? It's going to come from the SQL airports table. So we can always grab everything out of any table just by typing select star from table name, in our case, SQL airports, and it'll just return all of the data to us. This is probably about 50% of everything you need to build the business values that you're going to build in Process Director. It's the easy 50%. The other 50% gets a little more complex, but we're going to take it in bite-sized chunks over the next couple of weeks and build some slightly more complex SQL statements. But with this one alone, we already have the ability to build a business value that's going to give us all of our data, which is something that we do quite a lot. So in my data folder, having looked at our data, we have our uh, our business value or our business or our data source. We have our original data, airports, which we've imported into the internal user database, which in our case is in SQL Server. And so with that, now I can begin building a business value using the SQL statement that we just created. Now, of course, we've had webinars in building business values, so we're not going to go into much detail about building business values as a concept, but we are going to call this all airport data. And once we create it, we're going to be choosing this here in a little bit. So we better group it in the value picker. We will just call this the SQL commands webinar. That's pretty lengthy, but I think we'll leave it with that. I'm actually going to update it right now to save those values. And then we will go into our SQL data source. Well, we already have seen that we're using the SQL Webinar Airports data source. So we'll choose that as our data source for our business value. And then we're just going to paste that select star from SQL Airports into our SQL statement. I do wish that it would stop trying to help me with my spelling. So let me ignore that. So as I mentioned earlier, I have restricted the data source to only show me the SQL airports table. So it's only going to show us data from that table. This is the only table we can access via business values in this example. And as we can see, if we pick SQL airports, it shows us all of the fields that are available to us, which we'll come back to in just a few minutes. But for right now, SQL star from SQL airports, if I test this query, will give me everything that I need from the table, which is to say everything that exists in the table, and it'll show me the first 100 rows here so that I can look at it and be sure that I have the right data. Then I can just click Add Columns as Properties, and it will add those columns for me. I think I would prefer to capitalize the ID, but everything else, those are decent names. I suppose if I really wanted to make it user-friendly for other implementers, I would throw in some spaces here just to make it look nice whenever it gets displayed. But I think I'm pretty happy with this, and I don't need to worry about parameters or anything else. I just want all of the data. So I'm pretty happy with this business value. So I'm just going to go ahead and save it. So I've got my first business value. I've used the simplest SQL statement of all, and happily the simplest SQL statement of all gives me the most data of all. Of course, now I have to use it somewhere. So I have a couple of forms down here that we'll be looking at. And the first one is this SQL form. It's called Advanced because we'll be using it a lot next week. And as we do more advanced things. But what I have in this particular form, if we go to the design view, is I have the new data list control. If you don't have version 6.1 or 6.0, I don't exactly remember when we implemented it, but it wasn't that long ago. So you need to have a newer version of Process Director to have this control, but this control makes your life a lot easier when you're dealing with large data sets like the one that I have, or even much larger data sets. Because what this allows me to do is to pull a whole bunch of external data into a form without using a whole bunch of system resources. This sometimes makes my life easier, especially because I can show or hide the data list and I don't need it to be displayed and take up space on the page. But the nice thing about the data list is that I can just hook it up directly to any business value. And in our case, we're going to hook it up to the business value that we just created. I think I've already done a webinar on the data list. I've certainly done it in the Feature Spotlight webinars. So we're not going to get into the details of this, although there is a cool little wrinkle here that we'll talk about in a little bit. But if I go to the field properties for this data list, I need to specify its default value. Now, for us, the default value is going to be a content item. We are going to assign the default value from our business value, the one that we just created. So we're just going to pick content item, and then we have to set the default value. So we'll click the little build button to open the choose content object. We will go into training webinar, SQL commands, data, and then we will grab our all airport data business value. And once we have specified the business value, if we go back to the columns tab on the data list, it will actually show us the columns that we have just applied. Probably should have showed you this first. So let me just go back and turn this off. We'll just go back here and go to no selection for the moment. And now if we go well, I suppose I should probably update it. So give me a second here. Let me save it. It should remove the columns, but it may not. I might have to close the form and reopen it. No, I don't. I just had to save it so that whenever the reload hit, it says no business value has been selected yet. So it doesn't know what columns actually should show up in this data list. So again, I need to go and add that. So we'll go back to training webinar, SQL commands and data. We'll grab our all airport data, and we'll now be able to go back to the columns tab, and we can see these are all of the columns that are available for us. And if I save and run the form, my data list will take all of the data from that SQL statement, which has 857 records, and it will display it for me in the new form. The data is paginated. So in my case, the page size is 20. I guess I could pull 50 and make it a little bigger so I could pull these airports. And this is all great. And I can take data from whatever airport I want to select up here, and I can transfer that data down here, which next week, as we do updating and inserting, we will actually do so that we can actually change this external data. In fact, what I can build, thanks to business values and the SQL command custom task, about which more in due course, what I can do is I can actually use Process Director to build forms as front ends for external data. And I can use that external data extensively to help manage or govern the operation of all of my processes. One of the nice things about business values and the data list is it enables me to pull all of this data without having to worry about a lot of system overhead that is going to slow down my form. So, for example, last week I had a tech support ticket from a customer who said, look, I've got a form and I'm using an array. And that is, by the way that we used to look at big chunks of data. It was really the only way that we could do it. We had to build an array on the form, and we had to fill that array with data. And arrays by default don't have any pagination. Now, certainly if you know what you're doing and you know a lot of SQL, you can build pagination in to an array so that it only shows you, like in this case, we're looking at 50 records at a time. But what they said, but they didn't have anything like that. They're just, showing things in an array. And they have these forms for their clients, which remain active for a long time. I mean, multiple year periods. And every time they do anything for that customer, they go into this form and they open it up and they add a new row to the array and they fill it out. Okay, that's fine if you're going to have, 10, 20, maybe 50 rows in the array. When you're at 200 array rows and each array row has 10 records, you now have a form with 2,000 form fields active on it, which is going to use up an enormous amount of memory. The nice thing about the data list control is it has very, very little memory usage. Because we're paginating here, even though I have 857 records, I don't have to create 857 array rows, each of which has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 fields. I don't know what 857 times 7 is, and I'm not going to try to do that math in my head while I'm trying to talk. However, that's a lot of form fields. And what eventually happens with an array, if you're trying to pull a whole bunch of data and show it in a form like this, what eventually happens is that your end users just run out of RAM because the amount of memory overhead that it takes for a regular HTML form field, even something as simple as, a little text box like we have down here at the bottom of the form. Well, each one of these controls is going to take up a lot of memory. First of all, there's just the memory that it takes up to read through the HTML that defines what type of control this is and that it is in a form. Then there are all of the other memory overheads that go with form fields that are kind of like built into and inherent to HTML. If you have a text form field, well, the browser has to track, like in this case, see my cursor's flashing in there. The browser always has to track which form field has the focus and when the focus changed and whether it has to do anything when focus changes on each of these form fields. And it also has to have the JavaScript that does all of the validation, if there is any, about what you have to do. Form fields take up a lot of memory. It's not like text. Now, you can, in a form, improve performance if you need to pull back a lot of records, as we've done here with our little SQL statement. You can improve performance if you have an array by disabling all of the array fields and then setting each field or setting the form properties to display disabled fields as text. Still going to take time to pull all that data across, especially if you have something like this, 857 rows. That's going to be a fair amount of overhead on a form. You can do it, but everything is going to be super slow because once I have, well, in this case, it'd be somewhere in the vicinity of 7,000 fields on a form. I could probably still run it, even though the form would be slow. Most of your end users, especially if they have less high-powered computers than mine, they'd probably just run out of memory and they wouldn't be able to fill out the form. So the data list is really great, and we'll fill the data list most commonly with really simple SQL statements like this that just pull back all of our data. And we can do that with a data list. Works fine, no problem. And we can get on with our lives because it'll just fill out the form and only show me, little chunks of the data at any given time. Now, I will say that all of this data is sitting there in the memory cache. So the data has all been returned. It's all accessible, but it's not using any system resources other than the resources it takes to show whatever 50 records are on the page at any given time. So it's a much more lightweight object to have in the system. So we'll close that for now, and we'll talk about complicating the SQL statement a little bit more. Because while it is great and simple to be able to go back and to get all of the data we want, sometimes we only need a small subset of the data. For example, let's take a look at the other form that we have. And before I go, let me be sure I save and close this form, or I'll elide past all the changes I made. Well, maybe I won't because I ran it, so it should have updated it. But just to be safe, we're going to go ahead and save this form so that we can go ahead and look at this form. So about the next most common thing that we do whenever we need to read data is that we need to fill a drop-down. There's a whole bunch of different ways to fill a drop-down, but one of the most common ways is to use a business value to grab the data to fill a drop-down. The thing is, if I'm going to fill a drop-down, I can't pull back all of the data. Well, that's not entirely true. I suppose I could. I mean, technically, there's no reason why I can't use a SQL statement like that and build my all airport data business value and just pull back, everything possible from that table. But I generally wouldn't want to do that because I've got to drag all of that data across the network. I've got 857 records with 9 columns in each record. And if I have to pull all of that data across the internet and use all of that bandwidth just to fill a drop-down control, that's inefficient. So happily, I can make my life a little bit easier just by grabbing the data that I need. Now, it is a drop-down control. It's only going to show me 1 or 2 things. But at most, it's only going to show me 2 things. So when I look at all of the data that I have, the data that we were just looking at, I don't need 95% of that data. I can cut the amount of data that I need to return simply by building a different business value that uses a modification of this syntax. And I'm going to copy it to make my life a little easier here, and we'll paste it down there. I got to get rid of this star. Fortunately, that's easy enough to do because I can just specify the field names in a comma-separated list that I want to pull back. Now, because this is a drop-down, I really only need 2 things, or I need at most 2 things. I'm going to need an ID for the record that will be stored as that record's ID whenever I select the option in the dropdown. And I need the display text that the end user is going to see. Now, the value and the display text are 2 different things. Why are they important? Well, let's go back and take a look at our airport data once again. Note that there is an ID. Well, that's highlighting entire rows, so I can't highlight a column here. It's not Excel, but in any event, the very first column is the ID column. And the ID in a database table is generally something that we call a primary key, which is geek talk for saying it's a unique value that identifies one specific record. So if you look at a data table, I might have a lot of the data repeated many, many times. For example, I've got this airport region, and even though I can't seem to get 2 that are the same, okay, here we go. I've got 2 airports here, both of which are in Alaska. Angoon Seaplane Base and Anvik Airport. Both of them are in the US AK region. Okay, that's the same. Now, I'm pretty sure that all of these airports are unique, but I'm not entirely sure because some of this data can be repeated, which means I don't, but I might have Anua Island Resort Airport. That sounds like a really nice airport. That might be in here 2 or 3 times. And the airport code, which theoretically is a unique value for every airport in the world. But again, if I have it repeated in my data, well, I'm going to have that in there 2 or 3 times. And there might be, well, there's certainly more than one airport, maybe not on Anuha Island, but there's probably more than one airport in, say, London, where I know there's at least two, or New York, where I know there's two, or Dallas, where I know there's two, or Houston, where I know there's two. And quite frankly, I'm only talking about commercial airports. There are probably any number of private airports in a particular city or location. Every airport, the altitude can be repeated 1,000 times. My point is, I can't use any of this to uniquely identify one specific record in my database, because all of this data may be repetitive, even if only inadvertently. What my ID column does, and usually in SQL, an ID column is either an auto-numbered column, which just creates a sequence starting with 1, and every time you add a new record, it just adds a new number to the sequence. The sequence can never be repeated. All of the values are unique. For Process Director and for more complex database applications, it gets a little more tricky. We can't really use just 1, 2, 3, 4 through N as the unique ID for a record. So what we use is a GUID. So every object in Process Director has its own unique ID. The GUID for that object, it's always the object ID, the form ID, the timeline ID. Timeline instances have their own GUIDs. Timeline user instances, so users who are working in a process timeline, the work that they do there has its own ID. We have these GUIDs everywhere. They're not as easy to understand as, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to N. These are all very unique. And in Process Director, they're not just unique on your server. Theoretically, they're kind of unique in the world. I mean, I suppose it's possible after several trillion records, statistically, you might start to see a repeat of a GUID, but that would have to be a super huge database. But that unique ID is what we need to use as the value for our dropdown, and then we can use whatever other data we want as the display text that we want our end user to see. And we have to build a SQL statement, and we only want those 2 fields, which in our case, for this particular usage, I think what we want is the ID, because that's the unique value that identifies each record. So I can only have one record that has ID 1. But I do need to show the airport, so I really need both the ID, and all I need is the ID and the airport name for my SQL statement. So this star is not going to be helpful because that's going to return everything. So what I need to do is just to return the ID. So I need to type in the field name of the ID. Then I need a comma, and I need airport name. So this is just going to return, well, I keep not deselecting caps lock. So this is a simple statement that will just return these 2 fields. So I can return everything from a table, or I can return one or more fields individually from the table. All I have to do is to know what the field names are that I want to return, and obviously, of course, the name of my table. So with this, I can simply return 2 specific fields rather than returning everything from my SQL statement. So if we go back to Process Director, we can begin creating our second business value. And this time we just need an airport dropdown to be filled. So we'll create a new business value, and we'll call it airport DD for dropdown. And we do want to go here and call it the SQL command webinar so that we can grab it from the right place. And once again, we need to choose our SQL webinar data source. Now we can just paste, select ID, comma, airport name from SQL airports. Okay, I don't know if this is just I think this is just an Edge thing, and I just can't figure out how to turn it off. I've tried, so you'll just have to forgive me. Editor settings. How can I turn that off? Don't use text prediction. Don't use grammar and spell check assistance. I just don't help, please. There we go. Ah, that's nice and clean. Everything is turned off. Okay, well, I guess I can figure out how to turn it off. I tried the other day and I just got frustrated because the settings in Edge are, well, it's a Microsoft product. What can we say? In any event, I've got my data here. As you can see, if we go to SQL Airports, these are both columns, ID and airport name are both columns. The nice thing about this drop down here, when it pulls this stuff up, is that enables me to, because I'm lazy, copy and paste data into my SQL statement, which makes my life a lot easier. But that's our SQL statement. Let's go ahead and select it. And well, there we go. We have our two columns that we need. We're a happy camper. We're going to click add columns as properties. So we'll have our ID and our airport name column. That's pretty cool. So now all we have to do is save and close our airport DD business value. And we can go back now to our SQL form. And we can fill that dropdown. So that dropdown is called Airport DD. Well, that's pretty logical. So we need to fill the Airport DD from our business value. So we'll go to the fill dropdowns. We'll add the dropdown. The dropdown, well, it's the only dropdown on the form. I guess I didn't really need to open the form to look at it, did I? And now we can set its value. So we're going to pull it from a business value. Obviously, if you have drop-down objects, you can use that. You can also manually do it. But I think probably in most cases, we're going to need to use business values. So we'll go here. Ooh, SQL command webinar, and we'll go with airport DD. And that way it gives me the fields automatically that I can use for my display text, my value. And of course, we'll need to type in select one here, which I always put in square brackets, as is the tradition of my people. And by my people, I mean BP Logic's employees, since it's kind of the way we do it here. And so now I can set my display text to airport name, and I can set the value to the ID. So with that, we should now be able to update and run our form. And there's my dropdown. It says select one, and looky, there are all of my airports. So I'm a happy camper, and if I pick La Primavera Airport, well, nothing is going to happen. But I actually want something to happen because this is an event field. If I change the name, an event fires, and what I'd like to do is figure out where that airport is, its country, its city, and its elevation, whenever I select an airport from my dropdown. Now, this is a super common thing. The alternative to a data list, I think in most cases, is a convention like this, where I'm just going to pick an airport, and then based on the airport that I pick, I'm going to fill out some data about that airport on the form. Drop-downs are great, but remember, we have 857 records in this table. There is a record set length at which a dropdown becomes enormously tedious to use. The type ahead helps, and often it can help a lot to be able to allow users to search for data. But again, I can't see everything I need to see about the individual airports because I'm so limited, right? I can only see two fields. Well, actually, I can only see one field in a dropdown. And so that is inherently limiting. So there are times when I need to see more data. The name itself, a single field simply doesn't help me. And if it does, then great. I can use a dropdown, although if I need to see more than just the name, I've got to have another convention, and that's kind of where the data list control comes in. But for now, we have our working dropdown, but what we need to do is be able to grab this data. Actually, before we get there, let's talk about a little wrinkle when we're filling dropdowns. Now, in this particular case, everything happens to be in alphabetical order. Honestly, I made a mistake in the data. So let's fix that mistake because alphabetical order is great. That's exactly what I want to see in a dropdown. Now, in my case, my base data is alphabetical. I'm a happy camper, but what happens if it's not? So let's make our data not alphabetical. So let's save our form. Let's go back into our data here, and we'll go back into our airports.slsx, and we are going to check it out. Now, I already have a copy of it checked out, which we just looked at a minute ago, this copy right here, although I did make it a little prettier so that we could see the individual records. But that's just styling. We don't care about that. But here's what we do want to do. What we want to do is change the sort order that we have here. Now, as you can see, record number 1, Abaye, you can see everything was already done in alphabetical order. Probably shouldn't have done that. So let's sort it in something that is truly random. Let's just sort by elevation. So Furnace Creek Airport becomes our first record, and it is 210 feet below sea level. That's frighteningly low. But we are going to go ahead and save this particular sort order. And, oh, I probably shouldn't have closed that, but it's too late now. I've already done it. We're going to browse for it. We're going to go to airports.slsx, and we're going to upload that new version, and it's going to overwrite all of the data that we had previously. So now that we've done that, if we go into all airport data, well, says it imported it. Not sure why I'm freezing up here, but I am freezing up trying to refresh the page, and it's taking a while to refresh. There we go. Now let's turn my content list back on. So now if we run this all airport query, okay, there we go. Now I'm all out of order. Well, I'm in an order, but it's not an order that's going to be obvious to the end user. Whenever they go back to the SQL form and they run it and they need to go pick an airport out of the dropdown, oh, that's not good. Because now nothing is in order. I generally do not want to show dropdowns that don't have things in alphabetical order because for some reason, probably because it's logical, that is what users expect to see, and that is what they are not seeing here. So I've actually got to fix that. So there's an extra little wrinkle on our select statement. We have to be able to specify the order in which we want to see our data. So we're going to add a new clause here, and it's called the order by clause. And we're just going to order by air P-O-R-T, not bracket O-R-T, by airport name. What the order by does is it allows us to specify a field or fields to use to order our data. Now, we only really have two fields here, ID and airport name. And both sorting by ID or airport name will result in exactly the same thing, because when I brought the data in, I already had it alphabetized and I neglected to de-alphabetize it before I assigned the IDs. But technically, even though it would result in exactly the same result, if I needed to sort by the ID, which I never would, because remember, each ID is unique to one record. But if I needed to sort by multiple fields, I could simply by separating them up by commas. So I could sort by multiple fields, and it would sort in the order in which it reads them. So in this case, it would sort by airport name first, and then it would sort by ID second. In our case, we'll just sort by airport name because that's the only thing that's relevant to us. So we can now fix the fact that our original data is not sorted alphabetically and logically in a way that will make sense to end users, simply by the way that we pull it back using a SQL statement in our business value. So optionally, by default, if you don't specify the sort order in a SQL statement, then SQL Server, all SQL servers, I don't think MySQL or Oracle or Postgres requires that you specify the sort order. If you don't specify the sort order, the default is to sort ascending, that is to say from A to Z. You can optionally specify it by typing in the ASC, and the ASC is the keyword for ascending. So this would sort it in ascending order. As I said, you don't actually need that because ascending is the default sort order. Generally, because I'm a little anal retentive, I will type it in simply to specify it explicitly, but technically you don't have to. On the other hand, if you want to sort it in descending order, which is to say from Z to A, you are going to need to type in the DESC keyword, which will revert your sort order. So ascending is ASC, descending is DESC. So you can specify the sort order. You can, in fact, sort some fields descending and some fields ascending. I don't remember off the top of my head when I last had to do something like that, but you can. You can specify different sort orders for different fields simply by adding the appropriate keyword for whether you want it sorted ascending or descending. Now, in our case, we only need to have it sorted by airport name, and I want it sorted in ascending order. So I'm going to change my business value to implement my order by statement in my SQL. So in this case, I will go back to my airport DD and I will set my SQL statement up. And if I test it, it takes us back to the way it was status quo ante before I unsorted everything. We're now back in alphabetical order. We're happy campers again, which means when we open our form and we run our form, that we're going to get our alphabetical order back in our dropdown, which is going to make our users much, much happier, because having non-sorted dropdown options is worse than being stabbed. So we fixed that problem. So our dropdown works, but we actually need some more data, because I want, as I mentioned earlier, to fill these 3 items. So I'm going to need now to select not just 2 specific fields, but 3 of them. I don't care about ordering, but I do need to take whatever field I pick here, and I need to pull back the specific data for that field to populate my form. So I'm going to need to use something called the where clause. So we're going to copy this. Again, I'm lazy, so I want to make my life a little bit easier. Now I've got 3 fields that I need to grab. Those 3 fields are the country, the city, and the elevation. So, and I closed my Excel spreadsheet. So we're going to start with this. And I believe it is Airport City, country, airport country. I think it's airport country. Airport country. If it's not, we'll fix it in the business value. Airport country and elevation. I think it's just elevation from SQL Airports. Okay, great. That gets us part of the way there. It'll only pull these 3 fields, which is all I need, but it's going to pull everything. I've got to have a way of specifying only a single airport, and it has to be the airport that matches my ID. So I'm going to need something called a where clause. Now, in the interest of horizontal space, I'll just go to a second line and type in my where clause. I could type it up here on the first line. Doesn't really matter. I could type in where here, but it's going to get too long. It's going to wrap. So I'm just going to go to the next line, and I'm going to tab under there so that it's tucked under, so it's indented under the start of the SQL statement. And in my dropdown, my value is set to the ID field. Great. So I need to return a single record. Unfortunately, I have the ID field, which identifies a single record. So I just need to know where my ID equals, and now it's going to get a little tricky. Normally, if I just wanted to write a SQL statement that just pulled back a single record, I could certainly hard code the ID, right? So I could just put in ID equals 1. Now I can do it this way because 1 is a numeric value. Whenever you are specifying a field value in a SQL statement, there are 2 primary options you have to care about. Am I going to look for a number, or am I going to look for text? So let's take a little different where clause. Let's say that I actually wanted to return all of the airport cities and elevations from a specific country. Well, my where statement would be, again, where. And by the way, I'm capitalizing all of these keywords that you see in blue, and that's just a lifetime of habit. SQL doesn't care whether this stuff is capitalized or not. You could do it all lowercase. You could play with your capitalization. SQL doesn't care. I do it this way to make my SQL statements readable. So it's not mandatory. I'd recommend it. Although, if you are using a tool like this, which is Visual Studio Code, which is free, and which, despite its name, was not originally a Microsoft product, because if you have a SQL file, it automatically knows what your keywords are and it will highlight them in blue, which kind of makes the capitalization maybe a bit less necessary, but I do it as a matter of course. So that's going to be my recommendation to you, just to make it easier to read. But again, let's get back to, we're looking for everything from a specific country. So in this case, again, we'd go with airport country. But now we're going to look for text because we go back and look at our original data. So let's go back to my, not my airport DD. Let me stop that. I don't think I've made any changes here, so I think we're good just proceeding, but it always makes me pause. So if we look here, we have airport countries. We have US, IR, which I don't know where that is, AU, PH. So fine, we have, these are all just text designations, and they're actually text country codes. So the US, obviously, the United States is obviously US, CA is obviously Canada. So we'll just use that one as our airport country. And we can go back to our SQL statement. Now, when I am looking for text, my text has to be placed inside single quotes. So now I'm looking for where airport country equals and then quote CA, and I guess not unquote, but I've got to place that inside single quotes. Now note, I don't do that here because numeric values I do not need to set off with single quotes. Text values I do need to set off with single quotes. So those are the, whenever you're doing a where, it's not just a where clause, anytime you are putting up any condition, and next week when we start looking about insert, update, and delete statements, or I'm sorry, insert, update, and delete statements. So next week when we're looking at those, we're going to come across this a lot because we're going to need to insert both text data and we're going to need to insert numerical data. And in every case where I am specifying some data, whether I am placing it in the database or whether I'm pulling it out of the database, I've got to follow these two conventions. So those are the two conventions. Numbers are not set off by any special characters, but text strings are always enclosed with single quotes. And that does get a little more complex because we're gonna play with each one of these. So let's take this first SQL statement. And we're going to have to build a new business value. So we're going to go onto our data folder and we're going to create a new business value. And we'll call this selected airports. And once again, we'll call this the SQL command webinar. We'll update that real quick. We'll go back to our SQL statement. We'll grab our data source and we're just going to paste this in here. Now, everything is hard coded at this point. Now, we can't really use a hard coded business value like this for our where clause. So this is wrong. We're going to have to change it because we're going to need to add a parameter and make those changes to it. But this query will work. Wait a second. It won't work. Invalid column name elevation. See? It is port name. It is airport elevation. Okay, fine. Now I got 2 out of the 3 names right. So now we'll test that query, and it is going to return a single record. The ID is 1, and so it's going to return the airport city, country, and elevation for a single airport. Now, if we go back and replace that where clause with this one, we're obviously going to get more than one airport back, because now we are looking for where airport country is CA. And if we run that, we will get a whole bunch of airports back, 52 of them, in fact, all of which are in Canada. So our where clause is super important, and it determines what kind of data we are going to pull back when we want specific data. Now, in our case, as I said, we can't hard code our where clause. So we're going to need a parameter. So we'll keep this as our current our current where clause, but we are going to need to add a parameter, and we're going to call this parameter. I'm going to call it ID, because eventually we are going to go back to the ID. So I'm just going to call it ID, and I'm going to put in the test value of CA here so that we can test it. But I am going to have to change my SQL statement, because I can't have CA in here. So what I am going to do, however, is inside my single quotes, because again, I'm looking for text. So inside my single quotes, I'm going to put in the system variable for my ID, or what would be the system variable for my ID if I could type. So this should be parm ID. So now I've got a parameter. So now whatever I pass as this parameter in a business value is what we're going to see. I have set my parameter as CA because I am looking for text. My parameter is inside single quotes. It probably will be easier to see if we go over here and I paste it in like that. So that's my SQL statement to pull back my parameter CA that I've just put in there, and to return all the airports in Canada. And so we'll test our query. And again, it returns our Canadian airports. So let's change our country. Let's go with IR. I don't know what IR is, but we'll run it again. Okay, there's only 3 records. Let's try, is Germany GE or DE? I don't remember. Is there a GE? There is not. Is there a DE? There is, and DE, Deutschland, is in fact Germany, because here's our airports for Lemwerder, Neumünster, Heringsdorf. Great, so I've got that. This is working. It's returning all the airports. But again, I really care about the ID. So I'm going to have to change my where clause because I need the ID. And I also need to get rid of my single quotes because my ID is a numeric value. So my where clause is going to be a little bit different. So we're going to select those 4 items where the ID equals our parameter. And so we can go back now. We can replace this. We've changed our parameter. Obviously, DE is not going to work. So let's go back to 1 as our parameter and test our query. And it returns our 1 record that we want that matches that ID. ID 2 will return, obviously, something else. Aberdeen in Great Britain. Okay, great. We're happy with how this works. We can go ahead and we can save and close our business values. I'm allowed to do this. You may not be allowed to do this on your system. I forgot something very, very important. If you're going to be using parameters, Now, my system lets me get away with it, although it's giving me a warning. It says there are system variables without encoding parameters in the SQL command. That's a bad practice. And I'm glad it reminded me, because what I actually need anytime that I'm going to use a system variable to pass data into a SQL statement is I'm going to need that little $sign right after the opening curly bracket, because that tells Process Director, I need you to take whatever this is, and I need you to make sure that it is SQL safe. So it gets sanitized so that it can't get passed to SQL, that whatever this parameter is. We can't pass a SQL injection attack to SQL by writing in some more sophisticated SQL syntax that fools our server into thinking that somebody who's authorized is, telling us to delete all of the data in our database. That would be a bad thing. We don't want that. So going to need to set that SQL encoding system variable inside our SQL statement so that when we go back to selected airports, and this should not be called selected airports, it should be called selected airport, and we should drop that in there, that SQL encoding parameter. So now when I save it, I don't get my warning. Now, there is a custom variable that you can set on your system to require and to prevent the system from saving any SQL statement that does not include that $SQL encoding character. Now, my system is set up just to give me a warning if I do that, but on a production system, it would probably be best, honestly, on a development system, it'd probably be best to set it, especially if you're going to have multiple users. Like, if it's just going to be you, like this system is just me. So I'm happy with it just giving me a warning. Most of the time, I never see it because most of the time I never forget to put it in there. Today, I just happened to, and it's fortunate that I did because it shows me that, hey, the system will, at the very least, warn you that you need to use the SQL encoding character. Like I said, there is a system variable or custom variable that you can implement on your system that will simply prevent you from doing anything if it does not see that $sign there. It simply won't let you save the business value until you put the appropriate SQL encoding characters in. So if you have a system, especially where you have like multiple developers, it's probably a good idea to implement that custom variable so that Process Director simply will not save any SQL statement that is not encoded for SQL safe encoding for all of your system variables. So we're good here with our system variable. It has the proper SQL encoding character now, and we have the data that we want to fill our form, because now that we have those three fields that we're returning with a system variable, we can now go back into our form and we can go into our set form data tab. And now whenever I change the airport DD, I can fill out those three fields on the form. So I have my airport city, and that is going to come from a business value. So business values, SQL command webinar is what I'm calling this one. Selected airport. Oh, what have I done? I've messed up something. SQL command webinar. Oh, I put in, okay, capitalization is important. Selected airport. This is not working the way it's supposed to. I think I know why it's not working the way it's supposed to. I need to go back to my business value. I got the data that I want. What I don't have are any properties. So we will have to add those columns as properties. Oops, sorry, let me go with one here. Add columns as properties. There we go. It returned some data, and it added my columns as properties. Airport city, airport country, and airport elevation. Having properties in your business value is super important. Also, so apparently is capitalization. So we'll set that to SQL command webinar. Okay, we are good to go there. So now we can go back to our SQL form. And this time, when we go to our business value, SQL command webinar, SQL command webinar, selected airport. Hey, look, I have properties, airport city. And I need to specify where that parameter is going to come from. The reason why that we added the ID field to our airport DD dropdown was so that we could use the value of that field and pass that as a parameter to our business value. So when I select an airport, it's going to save the value, the ID of that airport, and it's going to send the ID back to the business value. The business value will then send me the city, country, and elevation of that airport. So I'll hit OK. And because I'm using a business value and I have two more fields, I'm just going to go ahead and hit update here real quick so that it will take and encapsulate all of those fields from the business value into its own little tiny section here. So I can add my other two fields, which are going to be my country and my elevation and airport country and airport elevation. Let's get the right data in the right fields. So city, country, elevation. Cool, that should work. And this will automatically fill whenever I change the value of the airport dropdown. So I should be able to update and run my form. I should be able to select an airport, Aeroclub Airport, and it will bring all of the data back. Kulevik Airport, great. So this is doing pretty good for us. It's giving me all of the data that I want for all of the different airports that I choose just by going out, grabbing that data from the database, passing the parameter, the value of the airport DD control, which is the ID, passing that back and bringing me my data. Okay, so that's pretty cool for doing selection. Now, this is the easy way of doing it here, or sort of the traditional way of doing it in Process Director. It's a little bit different if we're going to do it in a data list. Well, let me save this form. So I'm going to be sure I hit OK. So let's go to our data list form now. And our data list works. We're real cool with it. What I'm about to show you is the way it works now. I suppose I should also show you the way that it's going to work in the very near future. Currently, I have a transfer data button on this form. It's called button add, and I'm going to want to click on this button. What I'm going to want to do is pull data from my data list down to this form down here. Now, this is a little more complex. It has more fields, obviously, because I'm going to pull everything. So this is how you would do it if just having a single field or single column in a dropdown isn't helpful. You would use the data list control. So for this particular control, to be able to fill out this data on the bottom, I'm actually going to pull it from up here, but I got to do it a little bit differently than I would with a dropdown. With a dropdown, I've got to have a business value that fills the dropdown. And once I do that, then I've got to have another business value that takes as a parameter the value of the dropdown and then returns additional data to fill a form. I don't have to jump through those same hoops if I use a data list. Now, the data list's drawback is it is a much bigger form control. Now, I can, to a certain extent, ameliorate that. I mean, I can stick this inside a section or an embedded section and have a little button or switch control that I can click to show or hide my data list. So the fact that it takes up so much space on the form, I can ameliorate that simply by hiding it when I don't need it. But if you do need it, you need to go through all of that data, maybe filter that data, because again, I have 850 records. And the data with the name may not be enough, even with a type ahead dropdown, for me to find everything I need. So the data list control becomes a really convenient way of just seeing all of my data, being able to filter my data, finding just the data that I want, and then adding it to my form. Now, in this case, I have to have a button to do it. And the reason I have to have a button to do it is because there's no, well, in the initial versions of the data list, it doesn't work like an event control. It does now, and we can take a look at that in a second, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this configured. I'm going to export it. We're going to open it up on the documentation server, and we're going to change it up a little there so we can see how it works in that context. Now, the nice thing about the data list control is that since I have already filled it with data from a data source, I don't have to go through any of those extra hoops, right? So I have my transfer button event, and that is button add, delete, insert, update. What was that button? I've forgotten the button name now. Button add. Thank you very much. So we'll go back over here and we'll go back to set form data, and we'll go back to button add. Great. We'll add an action on button add. So I need to add the ID. So it's airport ID, I guess. And this time, we're not going to look at a business value. We've already done the business value. It's running our data list. So if I have a data list control on a form, then if I go to form, I will see form data lists, or a form data list, and I only have one data list on the form, which is my airport's data list. So there we go. It will show me all of the fields or all of the columns in that airport's data list. So I'm just going to pick the ID field. So my airport ID field on the form will be set to the airport's ID off of my data list after I select an item. So I've got to select an item for that to work. But once again, we're just going to update. I didn't want to update and run. I just wanted to update. And when I update, because I'm pulling this off of a data list, it's once again, just like it would if it was a business value, it's going to set it off in its own little section so I can continue to add form fields. And I forget how many there are on here, but we can go ahead and fill this out. So there's airport city, and we will set this to airport city. Airport code. So airport code. And then we have airport, wait, is that my next one? No, airport country is my next one. So airport country, now airport elevation, and airport elevation, and airport name, and airport name. And I think I have 3 more form fields I have to fill out. Airport region, airport, nope, that's section data, data list airports. No, that's everything I need. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 7 fields. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What am I missing? No, I was missing airport region. So my 8th and my 9th fields can go away. Now, the way that the data list works when I update and run my form is first I have to select a record. So I'll select a record and then I can hit transfer data and it will take all of the items from the record I selected and will drop them down into these fields. So in that sense, it's a little more lightweight, the data list, because I don't need those extra two business values, one to fill a dropdown or whatever other object I need to fill to find my parameter, and then the other one to pass that value along as a parameter to return the actual data. This is just going to pull the data directly out of the data list control, which means out of memory, which means I should only have this set to select a single row, but whatever, which means that it's pulling this data out of memory. I'm not actually having to go back and hit a database to make this work. All I have to do is hit transfer data, and it's going to pull that data directly out of the memory. The other nice thing about the data list is if my data is not sorted in the way that I want it sorted, then fine. I can just sort it automatically. I can sort it by the name or by country or whatever. So I have a lot more freedom here with the data list. Also, let's say I only want to see Canadian airports, so I can have the airport country contain CA, and that just pulls back my 52 Canadian airports. And if I filter it enough with contains again, it's going to just pull back all of the airport. I don't know what IR is. I'm going to assume it's based on the name somewhere in Africa, but I'm not entirely sure. But it doesn't really matter because everything works. And I only need one business value that pulls back everything to make this whole thing work. Now, this transfer data button, now it irks me because I know we have a better way of doing it. So let me close this. And I am going to, well, I better export the whole thing. So let's go to training webinar. Let me export my SQL commands folder. So let me export it. And we'll hit save there. And let's go to the documentation server, which is running, who knows what version of Process Director it's running. It's 400-ish, somewhere in there. So it is our next gen version. So we'll go back to the content list and training. And, we'll just put it right here in training. So let me import my objects. SQL commands.pdz, we'll pull that in. And it should import without too much trouble. There we go. It imported. And now let's go back and look at our SQL command form again. Our SQL form advanced again. So this is going to be able to work a little bit differently in the future. I'm not going to need that transfer data button. Instead, the data list itself can now be set as an event field. So far, what I'm having to do is click an item in the data list and then click the transfer data button to make the data transfer over. Well, in the upcoming version of Process Director, I'll be able to eliminate that middleman simply by making my data list an event field. So I'll save and close the form there. And once it saves and closes, I can then go back into set form data. And I'm going to move this to a different event. Now I can move this to data list airports as my event. I can update and run my form. Oh, that is a very big form. I should probably go into this server and change the default size for forms on this server. But All I have to do is click on an object and it will just automatically add or remove the data from the bottom of the form. If I click multiple objects, it will just throw them in there as a comma separated list, which uh, I'm probably not going to be too happy about, but I believe we have the option to only allow us to, let me update real quick. Okay, did I not hit update? Update. There we go. That should have updated. It did. I believe we have an option here to select one row as max rows. So now if I update and run the form, and let's give it a second here. Now I should just be able, oh, it's going to force me to deselect it and select another one. Okay, well, I'm not sure I like that. As a convention, it is slightly inconvenient. I would prefer, again, this is a cutting edge version. So I'm kind of testing it with you watching live. I think I would prefer that if I have a field selected and I went to another field, rather than giving me that, no, don't you dare click on this field, you horrible, horrible man. I think what I would prefer is for me to be able to click on another field and just have it automatically deselect the first field and click on the next field. I don't know much about the controller, how it works, as to whether that's possible, but I think that would be a better, I think that'd be a better convention. In any event, one of the nice things about the data list control is that it largely aligns past the use of a lot of extra business values. And like I said, we could put up a, a, a show or hide on that. In fact, I think I did do that. Um, since we're on this server, I have a data list form that I think does that. I think, if that's the right form. Oh, yes. I've got a switch control that allows me to show or hide the data list. Now, in this particular case, I have an array down here. So I can, in fact, select multiple records. And as I do, even though there is an add row data button right there, don't use it anymore because this is an event field. As you can see, this has also has had a style applied to it. And so when I select airports, it just adds them automatically to the array at the bottom of the form. And so this gives me a lot of freedom in terms of selecting and deselecting stuff and just changing what I'm going to save on my form. And it gets me past the necessity for creating all of those extra business values. So that's just an aside. We're going to have to move on, and we'll have to go back here and take a look at, we have the order by and we have the where clauses. But what happens if I have both an order by and a where clause? Well, what you can do, and this is the order in which they go, the where clause always goes last. So we can order by airport name, and I guess we should pull airport name here. So it's actually part of our return. So we can have a SQL statement that both has an order by statement and has a where clause. The important thing is that there is an order in which these two clauses, the order by and the where, need to go, and the where clause is always last. In fact, no matter what you do with a SQL statement, in general, and I think for day-to-day use, even though it is an oversimplification and like all oversimplifications, somewhat incorrect, in general use, the rule of thumb to follow is the where clause always goes last. And so if you have the where clause last, you can't go far wrong. So we can now pull our data back. We can select our data. We can sort our data, and we can only pull back, like in this case, data from a specific country. So even though I don't have a particular, uh, even though I don't have a particular form to demonstrate this, we can simply use this in a business value and watch how it works. So we'll go back into our data folder and we'll create a new business value if I can find it. And we'll just call this airports by country. I think that'll be fine. And we'll call this SQL command webinar. And capitalization is important. So let's update that. We'll go back into our configuration. We'll grab our data source, and I'm just going to go ahead and paste this in here. Now, obviously, we're still going to want our parameter. So we're going to have a parameter, and I'm going to call it country. So we'll just go with our curly bracket, our dollar sign, and we'll call it country. And we'll put our end bracket in there. Again, enclosed inside single quotation marks. So let's go back over here and rewrite that. So that's what our SQL statement now looks like. And honestly, I think what we should probably do is drop it down here so that it's in order. So this is the one that we're working with right now. And obviously we'll want to add our columns as properties. Wait a second, incorrect syntax. Where do I have that backwards? I may have that backwards. No. All right. What have I done wrong? Let me go back and grab my SQL statement. I should probably read that incorrect. Where? Airport City, Airport. Oh, no. I always doubt myself. And in this case, I doubted myself for the wrong reason. You know, it's kind of funny. I did 10 years on active duty in combat arms. And yet, when I'm doing a webinar and I'm talking publicly, and the slightest thing goes wrong, I panic. Okay, airport. Where? Oh, I should have a parameter. I didn't add the parameter, did I? I said I would add it. Country equals, we'll just go back to DE. Now let's test our query. Okay. Now we're going to debug this one at a time. Okay. Okay, I had it backwards. My fault. Uh, I had it backwards. Order by goes last, not where. Where goes before order by. Order by always last. So take everything I said about where and order by, reverse it. Order by last. Wow, sure it was where goes last, but okay, fine. There's all my airports. There are 13 from Germany. As we saw from CA, there should be 52. So there's 52 results displayed. So it's working the way that we expect it to work. Just remember, in the exact reverse of what I said 5 minutes ago, order by goes last, where goes first. So we have our select, where, and our order by, and that pulls back all of the data that we need, as you can see down here with our airports. All right, great. So now we've got the where clause done. And we've built some stuff with our where clause. And that is all we have for the where clause. So let's talk about the delete clause. It's 1136. So we're not going to have much time to get into it. And we're going to talk about this in more detail next time. But the delete clause is always very simple. So next week, we're going to talk about the insert and the update commands. You know what? Let's talk about the delete command next week as well. I think this would be a good place to stop for this one. I knew it was going to go 2 weeks. I didn't know exactly how long I was going to talk or where we were going to stop, but I think this is a good stopping point because this gives us everything we need to know about our select. And by the way, the select, this is probably going to be 95% of the things that you do. 95% of your select statements where you're just pulling data back from process director is going to be some variation, slight here and there, of one of these 4 select statements or these 4 types of select statements. Once again, order by goes last, not first. So there we go. That is what you're going to do 95% of the time. So next week, we'll talk about what you're going to be doing the other 5% of the time, which is either removing, updating stuff from the existing database, or adding a brand new record to an existing database. Also next week, because of what we're going to be doing, we're not going to be using business values. Next week, we're going to have to switch over to the SQL command custom tasks. So we're going to have to look at that as well. And it was knowing we were going to have to introduce the SQL command custom task, which made me look at my clock and go, yeah, we're too close to noon to start getting into the delete statement. Simple as it is, there's some background we got to get into, and I knew I'd just run out of time. So we'll cut it short here, and we'll come back next week, and we'll talk about delete, insert, and update statements in our database. Have a great week. We'll talk to you again next week. So long.